What's up, guys? Welcome to another 11 out of 10 podcast. We're doing it bigger and better than ever before. Once again, with our special guest today, the man, the myth, the legend, a guy that has done 1,647 deals. Absolute legend in the space. He is the second oldest Investorlift user in history. One of the OGs that bet on us back in the day when Investorlift was nothing. Once again, we have our co-host, Zachary Keeps. Zachary,
Buenos tardes.
Thanks for coming out today. And David Olds, the man, the myth, legend. Thank you so much for coming
man. Appreciate you having me.
David, nice to see you again.
You bet.
You are a walking encyclopedia on everything real estate investing. You know everything about marketing, structuring deals, and you're probably one of the top experts in the world on title issues.
That's generous. Thank you.
I mean, all of our top clients are all using Easy REI Closings, your transaction coordination company, to close thousands of deals. So, guys, in this video, what we're going to be talking about with David here is the real numbers. The real numbers, no bullshit, not like what people say up on stage, but the real numbers on like how many deals actually get across the finish line, how many of them actually die.
Yeah.
Right? The numbers are actually pretty shocking.
Staggering.
And what we're going to be doing in this episode is going through some of the ways you can prevent your deals from dying and prevent a super high contract fall rate. And then at the very end, we have a huge announcement. Absolute huge announcement. No, jump cut this. Absolutely huge announcement. And to celebrate this big announcement, we're actually going to be giving away one Investorlift license valued at $6,000 plus $5,000 of my top buyers in the city of your choice to whoever has the best comment down below. So make sure to drop a comment down below. We're doing it to celebrate what's coming at the very end of this episode. So make sure to stay tuned to the end. Before we kick things off, David,
let's do it.
I want to show you something.
Okay.
So Nick Perry is our oldest surviving user.
My boy.
Came on back in the day. He brought you on.
Yep.
A few weeks later, I think you were user number...
I feel like it's 9, but...
9 or something like that. Yeah. And
someday I'll get my hat. My Cartel Boss hat.
I'm going to make you a custom hat. Cartel Boss number 9 on the back. Yeah. I wanted to thank you for the business, but I wanted to actually show you because it was guys like you that bet on us early that allowed all of this to happen. So I want to show you a quick video.
Cool. Let's do it.
And this video, let's pull it up here. This video shows the evolution of Investorlift from the early days when you first came on to today. You see, we just started out. Here we're in DC with Market Pro, House Buyers of America, Josh Cohen. And you'll see I move out to California. You're going to see California is going to light up here in a second. There we go. I just moved out to California, starting to do deals out there with Tarek. Oklahoma, that's Corey Boatwright coming on. You'll see Victor Rybachuk is going to light up Washington. Tennessee, there's you.
There we are.
There's you. Coming in. Arizona, Carlos Reyes, all those guys coming on. And at this point, you just lose track. It's February 2022, March, April, May.
That's
so
beautiful.
Each of these circles is the number of homes that are being transacted in each city.
God, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, weak.
Yeah,
where are my Montana wholesalers at?
That's right. They're wholesaling outhouses to frogs with 3 legs.
I would think Nevada would be stronger. Sure, it's growing. Washington's strong. That's interesting.
Yeah. We had one of our biggest clients was there.
Interesting. And Florida's strong. Oh, I like that. It's a good video.
So, round of applause for all of you guys. That's all you. 144,000 houses brought back to life. 144,000. We're just getting started.
Love it.
Yeah. It's doubling every year. It's more than doubling every year.
Really?
What's up, guys? In this episode, we're in Punta Cana. What we're doing is we're bringing the entire team together. We're going to spend 150,000 to 200,000 here in the next 3 days. The reason why we do this all is because it's a tax write-off, which means it's free. I'm just kidding. The real reason why we do this is to bring everyone together because the most important thing is having synergy in the team. Investorlift, baby. That's how we do. Investorlift crew is going scuba diving today. Should be fun.
Bring some 360 cameras. Hopefully see some sharks.
The number one thing you can do as an entrepreneur is invest in your people. So that's what we're doing this weekend. We've got this beautiful villa. We actually have a few of these, but this is the main one. Absolutely beautiful. All right, let's see where everyone's at. What's up, guys? How are you guys doing? Good? We got some drinks. We got some cigars. We're gonna have those later. We're gonna go explore the villa. All right, so this is where we're gonna work off the hangovers tomorrow. Some Investorlift. We got a kitchen, some food. Oh, I got a hot tub. Nice.
Amigos, let's fucking party!
You gotta keep that. That's going into the vlog.
Let's get into this.
Let's dive into it.
Dave, I don't know you that well, so these are all authentic, whatever.
Yeah.
Who are you? Where you're from? Talk to us about your journey into real estate and your expertise and what's going on.
Yeah, honest, there's nothing special about me. I promise you. I'm not Pace Morby or Bradley or any of those people. For me, started in real estate back in 2002. Bought our first.
Same.
Yeah, really? Nice.
2002.
My wife at the time and I, we bought a house, and it was our first house. And I went to the closing, and as we were coming out, I said to my realtor, I'm like, hey, I don't understand. Why was nobody else there? Because I've seen closings on TV, right?
Yeah.
There's supposed to be people and keys pass. And anyways, and I said, and why did I buy it from Wells Fargo? She's like, well, dummy, that was a foreclosure. I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't really understand what that meant. But, kind of even going back further than that, growing up, my dad was ex-military and very always the guy fixing up the houses, putting on additions from Boston, right? That's where I grew up. So very white collar, hard work. We're going to work in the yard. We're going to do all those things. And as a kid, you absolutely fucking hate it. Absolutely. I would just say to myself, when I grow up, as I'm out raking, the leaves in northern Massachusetts, when I get older, I'm never going to make my kids do this. I'm going to live in a beautiful condo in the city. And what happens? You turn into your parents, right? Mm-hmm. So, anyways, went to school at UMass, have a degree in criminal justice. One of the early financial crashes happened back in the early 90s, and my parents moved to Florida, and I ended up getting a job in retail working for this hardware company, Scotty's Hardware Stores. There were, I think, 177 of them in the state of Florida. So I became, very quickly a store manager, and I had that background in working around the house, hanging drywall, doing all that kind of stuff. So now I was on more of the retail side, but still dealing with contractors and stuff, which was cool and fascinating. And then we buy our house, and what do? You
fix it up.
You fix it up, right? So I'm tearing out carpet, putting down laminate, taking out sliding glass doors, putting in French doors. Nothing super heavy, pretty cosmetic, probably by your standards today, but for the first one. So had that house and sold it 2 years later. Same realtor, going to a new title company. We're walking in, and she's like, hey, you don't have to pay taxes on this. I'm like, why? She's like, well, dummy. And she called me dummy a lot, but we're still good friends. But she's like, well, you've lived in it for 2 years, so it's tax-free, the gain. I'm like,
that's a real key insight there, guys.
Yeah.
So for people, can you explain that?
This was house hacking before house hacking was a thing.
Normally, when you flip a house, you pay capital gains tax, right? Which I think is 22%?
No, it's going to be higher than that.
No, it's 37 or something.
37
it's the max.
Yeah. Jesus.
Yeah.
Short-term capital gains.
Short-term capital gains.
But that's assuming
I'm thinking long-term capital gains.
This is short-term. Yeah, long is going to be half that.
Right.
But this was his primary residence that he acquired. And that's the
so
key.
we fixed it up, and I think we walked away with $54,000. Bought it for $97,000.
Gains.
Yeah, so it was great. So took that money, and we were moving to get a little bit closer to where I worked. So we went, and I was looking for houses, and we found this beautiful neighborhood. It was Oak Run Court or something, and in DeBary, Florida. And I bought the ugliest house in a beautiful neighborhood. Right, perfect. And so bought that house. Long story with getting it all approved and everything, but bought that house and spent the next 2 years fixing that one up. This one was a big rehab. We brought in 30 loads of dirt and sod, and we did a lot to that one. But I did it all myself. I was younger, skinnier, and had more energy back then. And sold that one and made $100,000. I'm like, wow. Like, I need to figure this out, because at the time I was working for a lumber distributor, like 84 Lumber, similar to that. I ran their mill shop, the largest mill shop in Central Florida. So right about that time, the kids were being flown back and forth as unaccompanied minors. So I'm in MCO, which is Orlando, and leaning on the counter in the bookstore, and I pick up a book, the most cliche thing ever, right?
Rich Dad,
Rich
Poor
Dad,
Dad.
Poor
Rich Dad, I know, right?
Shout out to
I
Rob
knew it,
Kiyosaki.
yeah.
Golly, 9 out of every 10 investors start there. So anyways, I read this book, I'm reading it. It's an easy read. And I bought it and took it home and finished it. And at the end, what does Kiyosaki say? He's like, well, if you want to be in real estate, go find like a real estate group. Okay.
Yeah.
I've never claimed to be that smart, but I'm pretty good at following directions. So, I get on my big computer, with my huge ass monitor, right? Web crawler, because Google and Facebook didn't even exist. And I'm like, real estate, group. So anyways, I found Central Florida real estate investors down in Central Florida, and, got involved there, started going to all the meetings. They were a big group. There was a meeting someplace every night.
Wow.
So, those days were different, right? You didn't have this. You didn't have all these YouTube videos. Like, none of this existed.
No.
There was like one guy, Ty the Flipman Taylor, who had videos on YouTube, but there was no place to get information other than RIAs, and that was kind of like the heyday of real estate back then. So yeah, just got involved there, got some coaches, took all the classes, all the weekend boot camps, all the different things, and learned how to buy subject to. So while we were working, we both had jobs. We were buying these houses, and that was kind of our night and weekend gig, was flipping houses.
I love
So this brings us back. This is 2002, effectively, when you started.
So now, we're into. So I lived in 2, and so 2000, 6, 7, 8.
Yeah.
Like we had full-time jobs. We weren't moguls, but we were doing 2 or 3 a year, which is pretty good for us. So yeah, so that's how it was going. And by this time I was a salesman for 84 Lumber, and the crash. I tell people, because it drives me crazy when, like, 2 years ago, people are like, it's the end of the world. I'm like, this is not a real thing. What happened in 2009 was a real thing, right? Nobody saw it coming, which was the weirdest thing, right?
Yeah.
You knew the train was coming down the tracks, but you couldn't tell how fast or how far away it was. You just felt like a little bit of a slowdown, like, oh, things are just slowing down a little bit. Nobody had any idea that they were going to just drop right off the cliff. So, we started to see it, as a salesman. I was working with big companies, big track builders like Pulte Homes, Ashton Woods. And the interesting thing about them is, when you earn the contract for their complex, right? There's a takeoff, right? Like, okay, each model gets this many doors, this much molding, all the different things. And they were calling us, and they were downgrading everything from like solid doors to hollow doors, 5 1/4 baseboard to 3 1/4, 3 1/4, thick casing to 200.
They're cutting the costs.
They were cutting
preparing
costs
for the storm.
Right. And they were doing the same thing, like granite was going to laminate, they were taking away like the fancy corbels outside. Like, they were just doing those little things to try to cut costs to get ahead of it. And so we're like, okay, things are slowing down, but then it just dropped. So here's how we found out. We knew we were going to move someplace to a different market, because Florida was super competitive. And like every investor out there, who's starting out, we wanted to have apartment complexes, right? We wanted to have this. So we knew we were going to go to Chattanooga. So I bought this one last house, Zach. I want you to picture this: Deltona, Florida, 742 Trafalgar Street. So 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, 2-car garage, very typical Florida block house, stucco outside, very, very normal. Bought it for $97,000, probate deal. 1 block over, 2 blocks down. This is June of 2008. Just sold for $214. Would we say, if that was on Investorlift, would we say that's a deal?
Deal
or no deal?
Deal or no deal?
Yeah.
Deal.
Cosmetic.
Yeah.
Cosmetic stuff.
Hey, this is Investorlift. Yeah, we can definitely make you more money. This is the average assignment fee for a wholesaler, $14,000. When you add this on top, that is the average assignment fee for an investor's wholesaler, over $30,000. Click the link below and learn more.
Cool. So, picked it up in July, actually moved into it because I had sold the other houses. And I'm like, I'm going to fix this thing up, and this is going to be my last pop. I'm going to make $100,000. I'm going to be out of here. And so I get it done in like late October, and, scrape the popcorn, new tile, just normal stuff. Call my realtor, and she's like, let's sit in January, because you don't want a bunch of days on market, where it's just sitting, because nobody buys anything during the holidays. I'm like, cool, that makes perfect sense. So January comes around, and she comes over, and she's like, you did a good job. I'm like, I know. She said, it looks great. I'm like, I know. And I said, what do you think we could sell it for? So again, this is now 2009. So Facebook isn't a thing, right?
Yeah.
Like nothing, so she's got the notebook with the, the pages, and she sits down and starts flipping through the pages, and this house over here, this house over here, this house over here. She's like, probably like 142.
Oof.
Shayna, 1 block, 214. Yeah, that was last year. Wow. That was last year.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I do the most arrogant new investor thing ever. My house is better than that. Because we're looking at pictures and they're little like, people who just left, in the middle of the night, and there's just crap everywhere. My house is fully remodeled. She goes, it is better, but it's just not going to sell. I'm like, nope. And she goes, well, what do you want to do? I'm thinking I'm the most magnanimous SOB that's ever walked the face of the earth. I'll do 154. And she's a listing agent. So what does she go? Okay. Sign in the yard, out she goes.
Yeah.
Went a month, no calls, no nothing. Month 2, a couple calls, no showings. Month 3, and each month I'm just dropping it. And this is how I explain a bad market to people, right? It is like watching a fat kid chase a tennis ball down the hill, right? You can't, right? You're chasing the you cannot get ahead of it.
It's so
no
funny.
matter how hard you run, you can't get ahead of how fast the price. What we just went through a couple years ago is not a fucking, it's nothing.
Yeah.
It was like maybe a correction, right? But in a real recession like we had in 09, that's what it was like. I just kept dropping the price and I couldn't get ahead of it. So finally, I had given notice to my company. I'm like, oh my God, I got to get out of here. What am I going to do? So I went out and got some signs, and luckily had all this education. So I got these bandit signs, and because 2009, like that's what you did. And I, wrote on them, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, Deltona, ownable finance, $5,000 down. So sold it on a lease option. Literally, we had this nurse. She gave me $5,000. I unpacked my crap. We moved, drove to Chattanooga, and she moved in, and that was how we got rid of our last house.
What did you finally sell it for?
I didn't. The tragic side of that story is she was in there for about a year. Then I had another tenant. He really screwed it up. And kind of to jump ahead, we found great success in Chattanooga, and we're making a bunch of money. And I got really good at buying houses on owner financing. So I tried to do like just keys for the deed, just to give it back to them, because the market in Florida was still bad. And like I had an agreement, and they ended up just foreclosing on it. So terrible decision on my part. And that took me years to dig out of. So don't ever do that. That was probably one of the worst decisions I made.
Well, based on my quick calculations, and here's the Harvard grad, he's great with numbers. Between the first 2 houses that you flipped, you technically own that third house free and clear.
Yeah.
Based on profitability, just for perspective, right? You see 2 great wins, you're the greatest guy ever. Then all of a sudden the market, like you said, you can't get ahead of it.
Oh yeah, like if I was to, take all the money, like for sure we were way ahead. But what happens to a lot of people is nobody saved that money.
No.
Like we were making that money, and it's, we pay bills, we go on vacation, bought a car, new TV. You can piss through $100,000 so fast. Like anybody that thinks $100,000 is a lot.
Robert pisses through that at one night in Scottsdale. I mean, let's put it in perspective.
We did that 3 nights in a row in the Dominican, right?
Oh, geez.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
Thanks for the invite.
It's, oh, man.
You were always invited, Zach.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah, it goes $1,000 here, 5,000, 500. It just goes so fast. So kind of leading up to that, it was my wife and I, we were fixing the houses. My brother came on, he wanted to get into real estate. So I was going back and forth to Chattanooga. And the interesting thing was, and one of the things that I'm known for now is wholesaling. I had tried wholesaling when I was in Florida, couldn't make it work. Couldn't make it work. I put out the signs, the police called me, I had to go pick up the signs. I never did a wholesale deal. Everything I did was buy, hold, fix, and flip. And I think looking back, the reason it didn't is because I didn't need it to work. I was making 80, 90 grand in my job. My wife had a job making, probably 45, 50 grand. I was doing these flips. So like there was it didn't have to work, right?
Yeah.
There's no, maybe
no pressure.
Pressure, thank you.
Yeah,
There's no
going
pressure to
7
work.
out of 10, like.
Yeah, 7 out of 10, right? So here's what happens. We'd been going back and forth to Chattanooga, and I had put some properties under contract. We bought a duplex sub 2, and I was getting ready to buy this other house. And I don't know if you've ever done this, right? Hey there. I don't know if you've ever done this. Like you go look at a house and then you don't see it for like 2 months. Like your memory gets a little fuzzy, right? Of what that house actually is. So, So we pack all of our crap in the U-Haul and we drive directly to Chattanooga. It's 577 miles. It's a long ride. It's a long day. And so we get there, we go to the closing, everybody's exhausted. It's me, my wife, 2 boys, 3 fat dogs, right? And we get to Chattanooga, and it's this house, and it's in the East Lake section of Chattanooga. It's kind of just on it's not the best section. It's just not. And like all I've got to my name is this $5,000. Like, that's it. Like, all that money from those flips is gone, right? Like, I don't have a job now. I've got this $5,000.
You've got pressure.
Well, let me tell you how bad the pressure gets. So this is, So anyways, so we get there. It's starting to get dusk. It's June, middle of June of 2009 in Chattanooga. Hot as, well, it's pretty hot. I'm not going to cry about heat to you guys, but it's pretty hot and humid.
Humid heat. Here's a dry.
Yeah. So, and this house was a 1900s house, kind of built a little bit on the side of the mountain. Nothing's flat, nothing's level. I go in, we can't get the power on. One of the poles is out. The house is a little crooked. The doors don't close. There's a mouse running through.
Oh, shit.
No air conditioning. Of course, we drag a couple of mattresses in there, just 2 box fans. And everybody just collapses on these mattresses. And I'm laying there, Zach, and I'm thinking, what the fuck did I do?
Right.
This is the dumbest thing. This is the dumbest thing ever, right? I had a nice house that was really nice, remodeled. I could have found a job. I could have done something. But instead, I picked up my family, went to the city who we knew nobody, not a fucking soul there. And, and I'm just laying there. Everybody else is passed out. And this is going through my head. I'm like, I cried myself to sleep.
You did?
Dude, I'm like, I'm the worst, father, husband.
What
did
motivated you to move?
Real estate. I mean, it was all for real estate. We thought, I did some market research. I thought we could do a whole nother podcast.
So you targeted Chattanooga.
We were
You're
very
this will be
specific about
better
it.
than Florida. Okay.
Yeah. We'd get off on a super big tangent, but the market was better. It was ripe for real estate. It was an emerging market. There was a lot of stuff going on there, but that was probably like a low night. I've only had a couple of those in my life, but you can always think back like that was it. So, but you get up in the morning and you're like, okay, we're going to fucking figure this out.
Right.
We're going to figure this out. So I found a place to go find some bandit signs and, old school wholesaling, a lot different from today's wholesaling.
Yeah.
Back in those days, it was bandit signs, yellow letters, maybe some postcards and door knocking, right? Yeah. That was how you got your deals, right? So, I would all day, the only thing I did, first thing I thought about in the morning is how to do real estate. The only thing I did all day was how to do real estate. The last thing I thought about before I crawled into bed was real estate, right? So when people ask what made you successful? It's fucking focus. I have the ability to be just incredibly focused and be able to block out a lot of other things, which is good for your business. Yeah. Not the best for a family life. Yeah. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs have that. I don't know,
1,000%.
Okay, man.
I can empathize.
So I was telling Robert the other day, people come to my office and they're like, I want to be just like you. I'm like,
slow down. You don't know me.
You don't
know me.
You think you do.
Right.
Because you see the trips and all the shit.
Sure.
But you don't want this squirrel's nest of a fucking brain. It's terrible. Yeah. Because, what happens is you get so hyper focused on working.
You're neglecting the family.
You're neglecting. Shocking that you end up divorced, right? Yeah. Just because that becomes more important than anything for whatever's broken in our brains that allows us to do that. It causes problems in, the rest of your life. So bandit signs are where we started, working, trying to find some other wholesalers, but there really wasn't anybody that was doing it at scale.
You were like the first wholesaler.
100% the first one. Yeah, there was one guy who was a chiropractor who did a couple of deals a year, but nobody had come into the market, which this presented a lot of problems. Because I came
He's probably breaking his back putting out those signs.
Yeah, the market didn't understand, right? So I came from Central Florida, which is like this. Yeah. Everybody knows about investing, hard money, soft money, like all the things, right? But in Chattanooga, I'm not putting out signs, dirt cheap house for sale, must sell today, and Bubba's calling me, hey man, what's this sign? What's an assignment? I don't understand. Yeah. So we had to literally teach the whole community what we were doing and go to title companies, try to find an investor-friendly title company, which I will tell you, we could talk a lot about. This was the investor-friendly title company, and they caused me to throw away hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of deals because they told us they couldn't close them. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of how we started. I got my first deal pretty quickly within 3 weeks. And then, we did 37 deals our first year.
Not
I mean,
bad.
like we
That's
were
a
just
lot.
fucking focused.
Yeah.
But, you know, again, bandit signs. So I'd spend all week. I hand wrote bandit signs. I got pictures of just hundreds of them, you know, laying out, you know, we buy houses, we buy houses, we buy houses, we buy houses.
You have pictures of that? We should
Oh,
put that
yeah.
on there so people can see.
Yeah,
it.
I'll
we
It's
should
so
post
interesting
some
to go
photos.
back into that
Yeah.
scarcity mindset, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of want to delve into
Sure.
that emotional roller coaster of you had no option other than
No.
just get up and go. So you're crying yourself to sleep. You wake up. You're so hyper focused on you need to make money. You're down to your last $5,000,
Yeah.
and you got to support your family.
Yeah,
you got how many kids?
2 kids. We
Two
had
kids,
yeah.
3 dogs, and a wife at the time.
yeah.
You got electricity, moving costs. You got to pay for food.
Yeah, $5,000.
You needed that. You were
Yeah.
getting down to the wire
Yeah.
with that first deal.
And
You're like, you better
no
buy this
support
house.
system, no.
Right. So you
no
had
people.
to get it. There was no option
That's it.
other than I'm getting up and
Yeah.
I'm cranking.
This is that, you know, when people talk about burning the boats and like, we fucking did it.
Yeah.
I don't recommend it to people. It's
Right.
be sure, don't do it married with kids.
Yeah.
That's fucking dumb.
Right.
Right.
Young,
Like it was
20-something,
not
go
the
for
right
it.
decision.
Right.
Clearly.
But it's amazing what you can actually accomplish when you just have to accomplish it.
Yeah.
For sure.
You know, like when you have to do something, you
Yeah.
have no choice.
Yeah.
Yep.
It is extraordinary what you're able
This
to
is what I
accomplish.
tell people. Yeah. We're all just fucking lazy. None of
Yeah.
us are working at our potential. That's why we're trying to be 11 out of 10. But if
Yeah,
I told
love
you,
it. You got the tattoo.
Show
that
zoom
thing.
in,
Yeah.
zoom in.
I don't know
11
if
out of 10. Look at
11,
you guys.
11 out of 10
Yeah.
every day.
That's right. You know, if I put a gun to anybody's head here and said, you know, you can't use Investorlift, but you have to find a deal by 9:00 tonight, or a gun to your dog's head, whatever. Like, you know, if you don't, something bad's going to happen. You would figure it the fuck out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You would figure it out. Your brain, you will figure it out if you want it bad enough.
Yeah.
How bad do you want it? You know, so, you know, we did stuff like, you know, we put out over 100 bandit signs every single Friday night. I don't know if you've ever done bandit signs. They suck. But that was what we did back then because I didn't have any money. There was no
it
PPC.
was like it was the truck with a truck era where you would like drive around and you know, every time you saw someone else's bandit sign, you would write it down on a notepad and call them. And,
No, I would
and then
call
you
them.
put
When I was
yours up.
driving the neighbors back in the day when I started, I had my own bandit sign, just like everybody else put them out. You bought them for $2-3 a pop, popped them in with your foot, and then you'd see the other ones, you'd call them and you'd pull their shit out too and light them up and make a bonfire. But I call them, hey man, I'm gonna buy them. Happy to buy your deals. You know, replace yours with mine. It was fun back in the day.
So that was the stuff we did. That was kind of old school wholesaling right before, you know, all the Investorlift and all the toys that we have now. But like every Friday night, man, didn't matter, rain, snow, sleet, hail. Kids had to play at school. You know, we'd go out at 10 o'clock or we'd go out at 2 a.m.
And the family was involved. You, the kids, everybody.
Yeah, my wife, my brother was there.
Wow.
You know, during the day, like for the summer, the kids. We moved up there. We had one Jeep Grand Cherokee. I went and bought a Jeep Wrangler for like $2,000. Didn't even have a top on it. Like we were broke.
Yeah.
I tell people we were half of broke. I didn't even have enough money to be considered
Half of broke.
Wow.
Half of, dude. Yeah, it was, you know, also though, you know, great summer, you know, because I remember going to the grocery store and, you know, I need the generic Kool-Aid and the generic chips and the generic hot, like that's a real thing, you know?
Yeah.
So I do remember that. And, you know, I can relate to people that are just starting out.
I find people that have gone through that extreme adversity tend to be the most successful. Like when I look at my friends that are the most successful, they've all gone through these periods of just like hitting rock bottom and feeling what poor really is. Like once you really feel the pain of,
and that wasn't how I grew up.
Nothing. You remember what it feels like. Your brain is like, I will do whatever it takes to not have to experience that again.
And that's not how my parents were upper middle class. I went to a private all boys Catholic school. Like we weren't, I wasn't the richest kid in the school, but it wasn't this. It wasn't ramen noodles and let's turn off the cable so that we can put money into marketing kind of stuff.
Did you ever feel like you had the contingency though to call your upper middle class parents and say, hey, listen, I'm not going to be too.
No.
You never, that wasn't an option in your mind to call mom and dad and say, hey, I need a little help? Good for you.
No, man. That's definitely a driver. You know, my dad passed away in 2010 and still, you know, I was talking to Heather last night, you know, that's one of my biggest regrets. One, I didn't ever get to take him to the Super Bowl for the Patriots, but like I do always think, geez, would my dad be proud?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
My mom's 78 and I don't think she really understands what we do.
Yeah.
Like it's funny, I was at her house the other day and, you know, she's older, she has oxygen and she's still great, but like I had to throw up on her Apple TV. I'm like, hey, here's pictures of me speaking in front of 500 people. That's kind of what, you know.
Yeah. And what did she say?
She's like, oh, that's nice. I'm like,
That's nice. Change the station.
Matlock back on.
What's for dinner?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, they they don't, you know.
I
She
think,
knows we have
I
real
think we all
estate.
aspire to have that parental,
Sure.
you know,
Yeah.
gratification and their approval
Yeah.
and make them happy. I think it's not
you
just
know,
the money.
Yeah, oh, I'm the poster child for Catholic guilt and all that stuff, right? Like all the cliches, you know, we've got them. But yeah, you know, I think some of the things that attributed to that tenacity, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I grew up.
Right.
I was a Boy Scout. I was an Eagle Scout, so I learned like leadership and
Yeah.
you know those lessons early on. You know, again, everybody has this bucket of just defining moments. And I remember one time we were in the middle of the woods and we're doing this dopey thing, and I'm like, oh, I'm all done. And this like other kid who was like a leader comes over. Oh, is that the best you can do? No. So like weird that 30-second conversation that becomes a defining thing in your life, and all of a sudden now all the time you're like, Jesus, is that the best I could do? You know.
Did you go 11 out of 10?
I
That's
didn't,
what Robert's going to tell you. He's in the
I
Boy
didn't
Scouts
until
with you.
that kid told me, and then I'm like,
I
oh,
love
okay.
that.
You know,
Right.
and that's so that's why I was very successful when I ran retail stores. Just driven, just incredibly
Love that.
driven. So
let's talk about the momentum. So you
Yeah.
move, you start getting, you said 35 deals in the
Yeah.
first year. That's crazy.
Yeah.
The consistency of 100 plus bandit signs every Friday night,
yeah.
probably just staying on your game.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then after that, what transpires? Was it strictly wholesale? Were you retaining
Yeah.
anything? Talk about your business model and why.
Yeah, lots definitely. So no, we just needed cash. Again, I moved there to buy apartment complexes. But what's happening in 2010? Banks are taking properties back. They're not lending any money, right? And I didn't have good enough I didn't have the 800 credit score. Plus, I just had this house that got zapped back. So a different time back then. So what's going on is, you know, we're wholesaling, we're doing these deals, we're making money, and I'm going out and, you know, I'm going to people's houses. It was a very belly to belly business, and I go to Robert, and Robert says, you know, I need $80,000, and my cash offer is 60. Why do you need 80? Oh, because I owe that much. Shit, that sucks. So I was hitting that wall constantly. Again, you were around back then. I know everybody's going to be like, why didn't you buy it sub 2? Because we thought the fucking world was coming to an end, okay? Nobody knew that the market was going to 10x, okay?
Yeah.
Like that wasn't, you know, like we did buy some of them where it would cash flow, but nobody knew, okay?
Yeah.
So everybody just settle down when you hear that, because that's a question all the time. So what happened is, you know, I got very frustrated. I would go there. I couldn't get these houses. We got plenty, but I couldn't get as many as I wanted because people owed too much. So I'm sitting there one day and I'm thinking, there's got to be an answer for this. And I remember again, way back at one of the little weekend seminars I was at, and it talked about the number of properties in the United States that are free and clear. Do you know what the number is? What do you think it is?
I think there's a lot more than people say. I bet it's 20%.
What do you think? Can't believe we haven't had this conversation. Free and clear houses in the United States.
It's probably higher than expected.
I think so too. I'm saying 20 is pretty high, maybe 25. What's your guess? You should know. You're a data expert.
You're the guy, man.
Well, this is not something I look at a lot.
Right.
Should.
I'd say
I've only ever had one person guess it. And I've done this a lot.
all houses
Across the United States.
across the United States, free and clear. I know it's a trick question because like my immediate gut is like
Look at his
20%.
over analysis.
But then I'm thinking about, okay, most of America is actually rural. A lot of rural properties just go from one generation to the next generation. You got all the farms, you got all of that.
I mean, we're looking at 10,000 residences right here.
yeah,
You
I
know?
would say a city is probably
I don't know what the city is, but
lower,
you can run the numbers. Go to ListSource and run it.
40%.
Pretty good. 38 to 42 is what First American predicts.
Boom, right in the middle.
Look at this guy.
And that's why I run Investorlift.
Robert uses technology with his AI earpiece. He's actually Googling.
Someone was looking at
Two
Luigi
more
was
seconds.
Luigi in the back, too, looking
Totally.
that up.
Look at his ear. Zoom in on the
I know,
earpiece.
right?
Yeah, just said
Boom, right
38
in the
to
middle.
42.
38 to 42.
Okay, good.
I guess
Right in the
40.
middle. Right in the middle.
Oh.
So I'm like, okay, well, Davey, if that's true, and you're doing all these visits,
Yeah.
you can't buy. Why don't we just market to free and clear?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that make more sense?
Right.
Because then at least, you may not like my offer, but you could take
But
it.
you can take it at least. At least it's not an objection.
Right. So, I mean, we're still doing bandit signs, so we still got a mix, but we started a very targeted postcards and yellow letters to these people. So now we're getting more deals and we're growing and growing. And And we should definitely talk about dispo back then too. But so then the next thing is to answer your question. I know this is so long-winded, but I wanted to start buying properties. So again, a course that I bought, 6 years before, which was talking about a guy named Chris Kirshner, who talked about how to buy sub 2 deals and make 3 offers based off the equity and stuff. Yeah. So I said, well, why don't I just do that and make offers on these free and clear houses, right? So I'm Zach, I'm talking to you. You want 80,000. I'm like, man, your house qualifies for 56,000. That's all cash. I can get it closed in 10 days. Oh, geez, I just can't take that. Okay. But really, Zach, I can get this done. I poke the pain points a little bit. We can get it. Nope, just can't do it. Okay. But you need to sell. You're moving to Phoenix because your cat has psoriasis. Okay, cool.
Your cat has psoriasis.
Yeah. I said, okay. I'm like, man, I really just like to buy these cash and be done with it. Ask you a question. Do you need all the money at once?
No, I'm willing to take terms, Dave.
Well, they wouldn't say that, but yeah.
Of course.
So here's the thought process behind it, right? The best closers in the country, RJ Bates, closes 1 out of 10 deals.
Yeah.
Awesome. What the fuck are you doing with the other 9?
Yeah.
Right? So by doing this, it gave me another bite at the apple. Mm-hmm. Right? So you're not going to get 1 out of 9, but you might get 1 out of 18. Mm-hmm. But if you're making a lot of offers, that stacks up after a while. Mm-hmm. And this is how we amassed our portfolio, have over 100 properties. Because I just got really good. You can't take the offer. If I knew it was free and clear, boom. If it was sub 2, we would offer sub 2. So that's how we built our rental portfolio. So to answer your question, initially, no, I didn't do any rehabs because nobody's buying, right? Because banks couldn't get financing. Once I kind of got a little bit stabilized and we figured this out, I got really good. Almost all of my properties I bought within like a 3-4 year span. Some were packages, some were one-offs.
You're just buying them and turning them into rentals.
Well, a lot of them were already rented.
Terms.
Because, when I'm over at a guy's house or gal's house and I'm at Zach and we're talking, he's got to move, he wants to sell this house. And I know it's free and clear. What am I seeding that whole conversation with? Man, Zach, so how'd you get into real estate? How'd you get to be a landlord and buy all these houses? Right? Oh, cool. So because genuinely, you should want to talk to people and not be psychotic, right? You should want to figure out how people were successful before you. So cool, man. So what do you love about being a landlord? What do you love about being a landlord?
I love the passive income.
I know, man. It's crazy. I'm just getting started. I love it. That's our goal. Me and my wife, our kids, we want to buy rental properties. We're going through. And tell me, your experience, you've been doing this a long time. What's the worst thing about being a landlord?
Dealing with the tenants,
taxes and all that. But that goes in the bank, right? Mm-hmm. So now we're at the end. Hey man, do you need all the money at once? Oh, I don't know. Man, I know you love getting that monthly check. How great would it be if you could get that check and not deal with the tenants every day?
Right. And that was your pitch.
That's it, man.
It's interesting when
it's
we
not
hear
complicated.
Right. So I love that to differentiate yourself. But I notice your style as we're talking, right? A lot of people, the other people who've had it very quick and just more higher energy. You're very calm. You're very calculated. Yeah. Is that your style when you're engaging with people? Very slow. Because it's interesting when you pause, you have a long pause and it's like you're thinking.
It's uncomfortable, right?
But it's calculated. It's uncomfortable. Yeah. It's the point where I want to answer and I could just, I'm not going to speak, but I know you want to speak and they're ready to just say, I just want to do this. Yeah. I could sense that you're creating an urgency or more of utility from the seller to disclose what they want in a faster period.
So I'm not even as calculating as that. The way it happened the first time, I was at this house.
Do you see it, Rob?
Yeah.
It's very interesting because everyone else is real quick and answering. Yeah, he's very patient.
Well, the way it started was I was doing my first sub 2 deal and I'm standing at the counter and, the way you do sub 2 is like, hey, what do you owe? What's it worth? And then we start chopping away at the equity. What's it going to be for electrical paint? So we chop. Anyways, so I went into this house and I kind of had to run all the numbers, rough numbers, and they were giving me bigger repair numbers than I had anticipated. So like inside, my insides were just like exploding.
Yes.
I'm like, great. Like I get so nervous. Like I get nervous standing on stage speaking, right? My inside, I can't breathe. My lung, I'm better now, but I used to be really bad. And so I used to have to pause just
to breathe.
Just to fucking breathe and not be so excited and, not have my hand shaking. So that's how it started. But, when I started doing it a little bit more, I wanted to be like, man, I really want to do this with cash. I want you to feel like there's a thought bubble above my head with 3 dots just going, how can I do this for them?
Right.
How can I?
You're just wanting to for them to disclose the answer. Do you have an idea of how we can make this work? That's a great question.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the situation? I want to pay all cash, but do you have any other ideas or thoughts on this?
Yeah. I want it to be like it's the first time I've ever thought about it.
Right.
Because
that's really good for a lot of people watching this, right? We want to give
This is
value to
really-
them.
yeah.
What a great sales approach, right? Everyone thinks you got to be quick and this and that. Let slow it down, right? I find that when you're slowly engaging, you can buy deeper, you really get value.
So here's why, to even take that one step further. One, most people only sell 2 or 3 houses in a lifetime.
Yeah.
We are so arrogant about it because we do 2 or 3 a fucking day, right? Like, but the person you're talking to, this is not their game, right?
No.
So if you're related to football, we don't want it to be the fun and gun, bop, 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 bop. Like it's the running game, slow, take it easy. Because what happens is if you try to overwhelm a seller, show them how smart you are. We're going to do creative financing and step 2, and I'm going to wrap a note. And we're going to do all. They're going to freeze the fuck up. They may say yes just to get you out of the fucking house.
Right.
Yeah.
But they will never follow through with that contract.
Right.
The contract's falling out.
Yeah. And you're not building trust. Right. What I'm doing, man.
He's doing it right now. He does it all the time. Look at him. It's so funny.
Like, man, I really like to buy my house as cash, Zach, but I know you've got this mortgage and basically you owe pretty much what it's worth, right? I do have this way that I can do it. It's kind of a pain in the ass because I got to get the attorneys to do it, but like I could purchase the house and really just let you walk away if you want, and I'll just take over everything. I don't like that. It's not my favorite plan, and honestly, I probably turn away more than I actually do, but I'm open to taking a look at it if you want, if that would help you. And then someone's trying to help me, right?
Yeah.
Which you should be trying to help people. Let's not,
Of
I
course.
don't want anybody to misconstrue this. Our job as investors is to make the fucking world better.
Solve problems for
But
people.
also, I've got to present it to them in a way that they don't get seized up,
Right.
There was a variation of this that I used to do on my calls a lot. What I would do is, so when someone would say something, the big mistake that a lot of beginners make when they're first getting on the phone with homeowners is they talk way too fast and they don't listen.
Yeah.
And they're just blah, 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 blah. So a trick that I would use is if someone says something like, 250,000 is the lowest I can go. You just pause for a second, just like you did. What we do is you take the last part of what they just said and you just say it back to them.
Yeah.
Okay, 250,000 is the lowest you can do. And then pause again. And then just wait. And then be like, yeah, because I need to pay off the mortgage for 180,000. Then I have my car payment. Then I got
Yeah.
just say the last thing they say back to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just say it back and then just pause again. And then they elaborate like that. Well, that's how I would get people to elaborate on whatever it was.
Yeah.
Or sometimes it'd be like, sometimes they'll then even just like drop their price. Like, well, actually, I guess I could do 225, but like blah blah blah.
But I really like 240. I respect what you want, and I want to give you everything that I can. In order for me to make my small return, this is where I would need to be. If that makes sense for you, we should do the deal. If not, we should explore alternatives.
Yeah. Hey, I tell people I may not be the buyer for you.
Correct.
I get it. There's just a number that works for me.
Yeah.
But here's the good thing about me is I will close. You can pull my name up in Hamilton County Property Tape. You will see we close.
Yeah.
We own we're for real about this.
You've got really good, and people who are watching this versus just listening to it audibly, you have very good nonverbal cues. Like there's something that makes you want to respond to your pause and hesitation that makes them want to just, all right, let's get this thing done. Like, let's go. You know?
Yeah,
If you're listening to this, guys, on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, check it out on YouTube.
Yeah, watch his nonverbal cues. Some of the best I've seen.
Oh, thank you, man. That's kind to say. But yeah, every conversation, especially if you're in phone sales, right? Your voice is your tool.
Yeah.
Right? I could take it up, or I can get, hey, Zach, listen, let me just, let me tell you about this cool thing we did the other day. We were down in the Dominican. We went on this yacht. It was fucking crazy. We pulled so I could pull you in with my voice, but I can also slow it down and push you back away.
It's an energy exchange.
Yeah. So that's something I don't think enough people develop.
I think that's great.
So you built up your portfolio.
Yeah.
And then you started going more heavy on wholesaling. Most guys do it the other way around. Most guys go really heavy on wholesaling, and then they start taking down more.
I'm a fucking lifer, man.
You did it opposite, right?
Yeah.
Like you really focused on building the portfolio first, and then you transition more to wholesaling. When did that transition to like going really big on wholesaling happen? What motivated that?
There were some definite, very big on wholesaling, acquiring owner finance properties. And then the market started to turn. So then I shifted back into rehabbing, had private money. I'm doing, 5 or 6 deals at a time, which for me as a single operator.
This is around what year? This is
2014.
How did you raise the private money? Because it was just you and your family out there. Me. I'm assuming that you guys then developed other relationships by your massive amount of success.
Yeah.
Who invested? Where'd you get that money from?
Got really good at marketing.
Okay.
Really good. That's one thing that I've always been very good at, like kind of guerrilla marketing. No formal education, but we figure out what works. So I built up a great email list, right? Like everybody should be doing. And at the bottom of my email list, I said, hey, are you looking to make a better return?
Yeah.
And one day I remember I was actually at the hospital. My wife was there for an appointment, and this guy calls me. His name was Norman. He was an Asian guy. Hey, I get your emails. I've been watching your properties. Saw you online, and I was investing with this guy in Knoxville, which is about 2 hours north. But if you ever need money for a deal, I'd love to do something with you.
That's awesome.
That's how it started. And he lent me 30 grand on a I don't know, some flip or something that we were doing. Because I told him, like, hey, Norman, let's start easy.
I love that.
Let's just take it easy. Let's just do one and just see how it goes, see that we're a good fit. And so he became a great private. He was an engineer for some company in town. So he had a couple $100 grand. And literally I could call him on a Wednesday and go, hey, Norman, I'm going to send you over an email. Here's a property and I want to close it on Monday. Oh, okay, great. I'll just wire the funds over to warranty title.
Yep.
So, what I would do is I would provide him here. I would just had a sheet that I would type up, picture of the house. Here's, the numbers. Here's what I think it'll sell for. And I always had my broker send me an independent BPO. Here's what I think it can sell for. Yeah. Because I want them to feel secure, right?
Course.
Like they're putting up, it's real money these people are putting up. Yeah. So he was the first one. And then, an interesting thing that happened. So Facebook's around. I have a face for radio. I should not be on video or
face for radio.
or Instagram or any of that shit. But a buddy of mine, he was the first social media professor at University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. What he told me is he'd be like, man, you're going through all these houses. Like you need to be recording it and filming it and putting it on there. I'm like, Ryan, no.
Now you got 3 or 4 times more followers than I have.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand that. But so I started like I didn't want to be in the video, right? Mm-hmm. But I would take videos. Oh, I'm walking through this house. We're looking at this house. Here's a house, or my rehabs. I would constantly.
You were the first person in history to post videos on deals on Investorlift. We created that feature for you.
Oh, we always had videos in our emails back when we were on constant contact. But so. I would take pictures of my rehabs and I would create an album. Like if you go to my Facebook page, you can go back and see some of our rehabs where I would take pictures as it goes along because I thought it was cool to share.
People love that. People are enamored by it. It's like your own HGTV show or whatever. People just want to see it.
Satisfaction.
Now, but it also creates a top of mind mentality. So when someone thinks about investments in real estate, they're like,
think of you.
David's always doing that. Here's a guy, if I'm going to invest, I'm going to do with somebody who's an expert and he's consistent and persistent and they feel comfortable by that.
That's why I try to explain to people, I get a lot of messages, probably like you guys, and I'll click over and look them up and not one picture of a house. I'm like, well, you're not in real estate.
Correct.
You're not. I mean, even if you're not buying the house, hey guys, I'm out looking at this house.
I say the same thing. Just get out and do it.
Yeah, sure.
Be proactive.
Well, listen, I mean, in the beginning, I remember being nervous and afraid and why should I be the one posting about, that insecurity and stuff. So, but anyway, so that happened. And then I had this other guy that was kind of connected to me loosely through an organization. And he's like, hey, my group, we're sitting on about $500,000. I'd love to start lending it to you. And I was paying 12% and $1,000. Mm-hmm. So, and then, this other guy who was a doctor, he owned some vet clinics who I met through an old partner. Like he had like $1 million. So at one point we had just a ton of money. So we were buying all these. So I'm doing these flips and I wasn't wholesaling as much because there's a bandwidth thing, right? There's only so much you can do. So I met this young kid. His name was Justin, and we're both Masons in Chattanooga. So he was a young kid out of college. So he was always hanging around, like, what's going on in real estate? How do you do this? And
this is Megan's husband, right?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Justin. So, smartest kid I ever met. A double major 4.0, graduated. He has one of those, can't remember everything. He's in law school now. But anyways, he would always hang around. He was a fraternity guy. So fun for me to sit and listen to the fraternity guys and their stories. He's like, I want to get into real estate. I'm like, oh, cool. You should buy a duplex and live in half, just trying to give him any advice I could. And he was a broke college kid. So he's like, do you have any work I can do? I'm like, do you like putting out bandit signs? He's like, I don't know what that means. I'm like, so I got him and his buddies putting out bandit signs for me.
Nice.
And then, we used to, when we wholesaled houses, we would actually go clean them out. Right? Because, you're going to look right past all the crap. But a new buyer, right, who's not experienced with that, who's going to buy this as a rental, if they see 3 foot of trash in there, they're going to be like, this is what tenants are going to do if I buy it.
Yeah.
So we would at least go clean them out. So I would have these fraternity guys trashing out houses and stuff for me. And so that's kind of how we got started. And, he's like, hey, I want to find a house. What should I do? I'm like, get yourself a pad of paper, drive the neighborhood, go look for duplexes, write them, and send them a letter. And he did it. And I've had hundreds of these people come sit in my office,
right?
And I don't do it anymore. But I used to come in, they give them 30 minutes or an hour. This kid did it, and he bought the duplex. And then when him and Megan got together, bought another one. So I talked to my wife at the time. I'm like, I think Justin's looking for. He wants to do some more. Why don't we bring him in and just let him do acquisitions? I can teach him how to do acquisitions. I'll pay for the marketing. I'll dispo it because. Part-time job, and we'll do some deals. And because he was my friend, I gave him a 40%, which was probably more than I should have. I've told him that before. But I gave him a good cut.
Great commission.
But I didn't have to do anything. So we started wholesaling again, pretty big. And also I taught Justin how to do offers, and we bought between us as a pair together probably over 30 houses of properties with owner financing, 0 down. So my $8 million portfolio at the time, I had $6,000 in upfront money because I bought them all 0 down.
Wow.
My best package was 27 doors, $1.1 million, 0 down, 4% interest, 17-year term, and I walked with 10 grand at closing.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. So, but just talking to people and finding out what they need. So so Justin came in, we're wholesaling a bunch. I'm still rehabbing on the side, and that's good. So it's me, my wife, and Justin. So we're in little Chattanooga, 300,000 people. But we're splitting deals 3 ways. Okay. So you have to do more deals to do that. And then I had this other guy come in who wanted to come in and do wholesaling with us. He wanted to get into real estate. So now this was our problem. This is to get to the answer to your question. How did you get into other markets? Well, now nobody wants to split 4 ways, because back then assignment fees were 10 grand, 12 grand, 8 grand. So you start splitting them and it gets to be a little thin. So that's how we started exploring other markets.
That's how you ended up on Investorlift.
Yeah. This is actually the beginning of how we ended up on
that's when we
Investorlift.
met.
Yeah. We maybe a little bit after that.
Because you were trying it out, but you got hit in the face with dispo.
Yeah. Because as we got into like 8 different markets, I didn't have a good it was all about the website. That's why we were on Investorlift. I had no effective way. I was trying to build out this, and I am not the programmer. Zach, if my printer works on most days, it's a win.
You need both.
The fact that my printer hasn't gone out a window is incredible. So I was trying to send people to this landing site, but then they had to click their market, and then it took them to a different page. It was way too convoluted for me. And I'm like, I had no idea about Robert. All I want is a freaking website with a map with little pins. In my brain, that's what I wanted, right? And properties on the side.
I can just see it right now. David's walking on the beach and he says, David runs into a genie. Genie, I'm going to grant you one wish.
Dude,
he says, introduce me to Robert Wensley. And there he is.
I'm telling you, Investorlift was everything in my brain that I saw that this is what I need to effectively.
It was serendipitous, right? Yeah. We all have this need for it.
Yeah.
Only one guy thought.
So there is no way that we could have been in 28 markets.
Right.
0 chance.
Right.
Without Investorlift.
Are you still what's your portfolio look like today?
Yeah, 80-something properties.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah. Well,
and large majority, were they bought on seller finance?
All of them.
All of them, the homes in your portfolio.
Wow.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I've refied a few out now, but...
Okay. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I mean, assuming it'd be tough to refi any of those today with today's rates, I assume.
Well, I wouldn't want to. So this was a thing, and I know we talked about this. I talked to some other people back when rates were at 2 or 3%.
Yeah.
So again, let's go back in time a little bit. So for me, I started all this at like 38, 40 years old. I was old. So
take it easy, David. Take it easy.
You should see me now. Yeah, so you can do the math. But so here was the problem. So again, I'm always pretty forward thinking. I said I'm always thinking with the end in mind, right? How do I get to the end as quick as possible, right? Which is sitting on the beach doing whatever you want, right? Which none of us will ever do that, but let's fantasize. So how do I get to the end as quick as possible? And I had always had this dream of I want to retire at 50. Like that was always the thing in my head. So I'm like, well, I'm at 42. So as I'm doing all these terms offers, I'm trying to compress the amortization down as low as I can because I'm thinking, one, I don't want to be 70 still making payments on these things, right? I don't want to do this for 30 years. That's dumb. How can I get them paid off quickly? Also, what made me different from other people is I did not need the cash flow. I had a thriving wholesale business. We're making on a bad month, $40,000 a month, right? Gross. So, for me, when I would put together these terms offers, it would be as compressed at 5 years, 7 years, 12 years, 10 years, 20 years.
Amortization on this.
Yeah, make them as short as possible. I still had at the time, 200.
And you could still cash flow even with the really short amortization?
150 to $200.
That's very impressive.
Yeah, back
so
then.
These must be really cheap homes, 30, 40, 50,000?
Yeah.
Do you
now
wish?
They're worth
5x. Yeah.
That's
Do you
insane.
wish you did the opposite though and done these all in 30? Because
No.
if you can get cheap money, if I can get cheap money, like 4%
It wasn't cheap
or
then,
whatever.
though. You got to go back and where in that time.
Okay, so it wasn't that cheap.
Well, I was still at 5 and 6% because I'm writing my own offers.
Right.
Okay.
I had a mentor come up. I flew him up from Florida one time to speak at our RIA, and he was sitting there at our table in our office one time, and I was making an offer on these 6 houses, and I'm like, his name was Augie Bylot, brilliant transactional engineer. And I'm like, Augie, I'm doing this thing. I'm going to do 7%, 80,000 for a duplex, right? That's now worth, $250. But he just goes, okay, why 7? Is that what you do? I'm an idiot. I don't know. I'm no smarter than anybody else. He's like, bro, it's a terms offer. You can do whatever you want. I'm like, 6? He's like, 5?
4?
So that's where,
0?
Yeah. Well, the IRS doesn't like 0, but but I've done plenty of zeros too. So the way that I looked at it is I wanted it paid off as quick as possible so I could get done. So the most I ever did at 40 was a 20-year term, right? So that always became the benchmark for 60. So I was always, my goal was everything was paid off by the time I was 60. Right. Yeah. So, that's why the 17-year term, I was 43. I was very specific. I would not go past that date. Yeah. Bunch of 5s in there and, some
Have
other
you
stuff.
pulled any of the, because you have tremendous equity. So so you played with it.
I
obviously.
regret that, that I sold some properties off instead of doing refis.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? Everyone who's come on here says,
Every
wish
single one.
I would have just held versus sell.
Every time.
Just playing the long game.
Yeah.
But you're the first person to say, well, I have this game plan that I have this target date at a certain age, a year at 60 or 50, whatever it is, that I want to exit and not have debt, right? Because otherwise, people are just doing what they're doing, but there's no game plan.
Yeah.
It's like you're running, you don't even know which direction you're going.
Right.
So I think that was really smart that at least you had that your roadmap in your head.
Well, yeah, and that, comes from my working class parents who, talk about retiring. But the other thing, the reason that I never refied all these properties, which I could have pulled out millions of dollars.
Yeah, tax-free.
Millions of
delayed,
dollars.
essentially. Yeah.
Well, one, it would have restarted the clock.
Correct.
Right? But 2, when I started, it was 2009. I saw really big investors lose their ass because they were over leveraged.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest fear that I've got, right? Is not being over leveraged, So even when I was buying these properties and I was, I was paying top of the market, I was still in them at 60 cents on the dollar, tax assessed dollar.
Right.
So I was always very careful about that. So so that's why I never really did a bunch of refinancing, When I went through my divorce, we had to refinance some to clean some stuff up. But overall, that's been our game plan.
So, David, I want to talk about title.
Yeah,
that's really what we brought.
I know, man. This is two podcasts. We'll cut
a
that
lot
one
of
separate.
backstory here, which is incredible. I always love hearing people's journeys of building up a portfolio of 80 properties, wholesaling,
not nearly as impressive as this guy.
1,267.
Listen, stay in your own lane, brother.
Absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
And having you on Investorlift in the early days, absolutely incredible. Watching that whole journey, so great. Now, in the last couple of years, I remember actually it all started at our first Investorlift Cartel Summit. You had this crazy idea to create a transaction coordination company, which became Easy REI Closings.
Right.
Explain to people that maybe aren't familiar what transaction coordination is and what Easy does. And then what I want to do is really dive into what the real numbers are on like contract follow, all that.
Yeah. So typically when I was, I'll just relate it back to me, when I was wholesaling, and I was a solopreneur, had a very, very small team. I'm doing the marketing, I'm doing the acquisitions, I'm doing the dispositions, and then I'm doing all of the title stuff, right?
Yeah.
Well, what do we all know that investors do? we go out first. Again, we're trying to help people, but we're looking to solve problems. The more problems that I can solve, the deeper discount that I can get, right? So we pull lists: death, divorce, probate, taxes, bad tenant, water shut off, right? All of the things. So when we go and talk to those sellers, the more of those problems that they have, the better the discount I can get.
But also the worse the title.
Right. Perfect, right? So this is where most of the gurus and the coaches kind of stop, right? And then they're like, maybe they're smart enough to put their students on Investorlift, or, just go post it in Facebook or some nonsense like that. And then the next answer is just go find a title company to clear it up. Well, one, is not the title company's job. The title company's job is to run the title, not to do all the curative work for you. So here's what was happening for me: marketing, acquisitions, dispo, and doing the transaction stuff. And I was constantly jumping from one bucket to another. Right. And when you do that, you get into this kind of wholesale cycle of death, right? Marketing. I got people. I got to talk to acquisitions. Great. Now I'm doing acquisitions. Oh, now I'm switching hats again. Now I'm doing dispo, right? Now I got to stop that. Now I got to get these deals closed. And that's a cycle, right? And this is why wholesale businesses go up and down, up and down, up and down all the time. So you have these spikes of income 4 times a year, 5 times a year. But that's it. If until you figure out how to even that out. We did it with partners, and we broke up the business. But yeah, I saw that this was a problem. And for me, remember I talked earlier about that investor-friendly title company. So in my early days, I would go in there and I'd be so excited to drop my contract on the desk. It was First Title in Chattanooga. They're still there. And I'd give it to the attorney, and he'd look at it and be like, "Oh, Davey, this one has dead people." Like, yeah, man, it's dead people.
Probate. We don't do probate.
We don't do
Find
probate.
another title.
Yeah. Well, go get that. Have them have the seller get an attorney, and the seller who's broke, in a wheelchair. I'm like, so constantly, I'm just throwing these contracts away, throwing them away, Felt like 2 out of 3. It got so bad, I nicknamed this guy Dr. No, like he was like the James Bond villain. And
it was Dr. Kevorkian running the title.
Yeah,
he was killing all the deals.
Yeah. So I'm in there one day, and I remember this distinctly. I just come from this woman's house. I'm like, she had this horrible story. I'm like, I'm going to buy this house. We're going to help you. I go down there, same nonsense. Can't do it. I'm like, I got a little outside myself. I hit my hand on the desk. I'm like, what the fuck, Jeremy? Come on, man. I cannot go back and tell this lady I'm not going to do this. I just can't. I don't. What would you do, man? There's got to be a way to do this. And then he goes, well, I guess, man, if you can get me like the death certificate and, all the kids, all the heirs will sign, and an obituary and 2 disinterested parties, I guess we could close this. And my mouth hangs open staring at this guy, because I'm like thinking in my brain,
how many
8,000,
other deals
10,000,
could you have
how
actually
many
closed for me?
Fucking deals did I throw away in the last couple of years?
Just because for him, he's just looking at it like, I'm going to lose
more
money.
work for the
I'm gonna
same
lose money
$600
on
to
this.
$800. I don't want to mess with
That's
it.
right.
And
Which
it's
is
costing you 20 grand.
Right.
Yeah. So this is the problem. Investors don't understand. Like, title companies are not all created equal. We are their worst business because we're the most complicated business. So anyways, that was, again, another one of those defining moments. I'm like, what the fuck? Now I'm leaving there. All I can think about is how many deals, how much money did I not make because I didn't know how to ask good questions. Right. So then now I'm on the let's figure this plan out. Let's start to figure out and go to some different title companies. Like, how can we start to work through some of these problems? Because everybody watching this, every single person who's done deals has had this happen. And it's 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, 100,000. Right? These deals that just go sideways because it's easier for an attorney and they all do this. Oh, they give you like the platinum plan. Oh, you're going to have to do probate, and then you're going to have to get a court order, and you have to do that, when in reality, there's probably an easier way. Not always, but a lot of times, at least 50% of the time, there is a way to get these things done.
Yeah. I remember I used to lose 1 in 5 to 1 in 10 on title.
Oh, at least. So
But then I over the years, then I finally realized that, actually every title issue can be resolved.
Everything is fixable.
Yep.
Do you have, is it
time and money?
Time and money.
Is the juice worth the squeeze? Right?
Yeah.
What'd you say? Is the
But
juice
what's
worth
What's annoying though is when the title company is just like, you can't.
Right.
Right.
Like,
There's
you have a
always
title
another one
company
that
that's just saying,
will,
no,
and
you
they're
can't.
like deemed as, it's a shady title company. They're not shady. They're just willing to put in the work.
Right.
They want that business.
Really investor friendly.
Yeah.
And that's, Megan, my other partner, she runs, they are investors. So that's why they've been very successful in the title business and why we're going to partner with, why we're going to do stuff with them. But, yeah, I mean, do they see things from the investor's point of view, and is it worth the risk? So, anyways, by the time we got to Mexico, I was coaching people on dispositions, and kind of like I sort of fell into being like the transactions guy, right?
Yeah.
Guys would call me, hey, I've got this deal. What should I do? Oh, do this. Here are the steps to get that done.
Yeah, everyone would be calling David once a week on some hairy deal.
Like Corey Geary would just blow me up constantly.
Yeah.
Corey's a wild guy.
I love Corey.
Corey's an animal.
He's my guy. So, you knew Corey before, right?
Yeah.
I knew. I don't know him that well, but he was in a couple masterminds and whatnot before his crypto space. and whatnot.
Yeah, he's crushing it with crypto. Hey, I love Corey. But so we're down in Mexico, and I don't know why we brought it up, but I said, I'm thinking about doing this thing. I'm thinking about opening a transactions company. And everybody's like, you're crazy. Corey, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. That's brain damage. I'm like, I feel like there's nobody that does it. And I think it's a real need for people. And they can't, how many deals are they losing?
Yeah.
And who has the ability to scale out and bring in a $60,000, $70,000 transaction coordinator who actually knows what they're talking about?
Yeah, I think I said do it, but charge more because I saw the title companies getting kicked in the teeth with investors.
Yeah.
And how title companies were like, hey, we're just not working with investors anymore. Like we're losing money on these files.
Yeah.
Because the more pain points we stack on, the more fucked up the title is.
Right. Well, that's where I was going before. Like we've got all these problems, but then what do we do on the dispo side? I get on Investorlift and I'm like, clear title, proration of taxes, right? Well, there can sometimes be just a chasm, like of the Grand Canyon size, of figuring out all of those problems. Are some easy? Sure.
Yeah, we were kicking it here the other day, and you pulled up a deal that like literally.
Oh yeah.
Like. It's like 1 year to clear the title, but you guys are getting it done.
Yeah.
It's like multiple different errors and tracking them down and like judgments.
It's like herding cats on crack. It's insane sometimes.
So you launched Easy REI closings what year? That was.
You were there for that launch. It was in Miami in 2000. October 2021 is what it was.
2021.
Yeah. Yeah, we started out slow, and initially, the way that we built Easy was exactly the way that I had my TCs, Heather and her team, running it for Nationwide Property Liquidators, right? So I always approach this from a couple of different standpoints. One, like I'm a real investor, so I'm building this for me. What would I want? Yeah. Right? I want my reports on Monday morning. I want a place where I can
quick pause so Zach can sneak in.
Every time you move in a deal without using Investorlift, you're doing this.
No, God!
On average, we're selling at $30,000 per assignment on Investorlift. Come check out how you can make more money for the same deals on Investorlift. Click on the link below.
No! No!
To drain the canister.
Drain the main vein.
That's fancy water.
That's a lot of work. Okay, guys.
All right, we'll jump cut back in.
Jump cut, Zach, jump cut. The leak.
So when we started this, I always approached it from the point of view of an investor, right? Initially it was built for us and a couple of our friends, right? So a couple of the cartel bosses. And, what are some things that they would need, right? So a couple things were very foundational. I wanted to make sure we had a portal, right? Or a CRM, whatever you want to call it. Some place because I know if you're going to trust me to do your transactions, I take that very seriously because I know this is a lot of money. I always want you to have a place where you can go look at it in real time and see exactly what's going on. So we spent a ton of money creating this portal where if it's Tuesday at 2 a.m. and you're panicking about 123 Main Street, you can go on and see the stuff. And you saw that, right? It's a lot, right? Every time a property's touched. So that was important. I knew that we needed to be able to do all deal types in all 50 states, which nobody's ever done. Yeah. Because it's complicated, because there's a lot of stuff. Complicated. So that was the next thing. I needed to make sure that my coordinators cared as much about your deal closing as you do. Mm-hmm. Right? Because I've been through this, right? Yeah. I've taken my file to the title company and I drop it on Susie's desk and I call Susie 3 days later. Hey, how's it going? Oh, that's on Steve's desk. Okay, patch me over to Steve. Hi, this is Steve. I'm on vacation for the next 2 weeks. Call Bob. I call Bob and he's like, hey, I just got this big stack of files. I'll get to it as quick as I can, right? Because what's important to us when we're doing your transaction? Getting you paid. Yeah. like let's not be confused. It's all about getting paid. So how do we compress that time, right? How do I go from the day you give me your first contract to the day you close? How do I keep shrinking that down, right?
Do you get paid if the deal doesn't close?
I do.
And what are your fees?
It varies depending upon like how many files that you're doing. I'll come back to that because I'll explain how we work. But so the way that we did it with our coordinators is they're all on a salary, plus they get a bonus when your deal closes. So they work very hard because these bonuses, some of them are making a couple grand a paycheck. So they're working very hard to make sure that these deals get drug over the finish line.
That's
right?
smart. You put their pockets.
Yeah.
I love
You
that.
align their pockets with investors' pockets.
Yeah. And then for me, it was important more so than my team, but that because I'm an old school guy, I wanted everybody working in the office, right?
Yeah.
I didn't want somebody, sitting on the couch, watching Netflix, trying to work on your deals with their dog on their lap or some shit like that. So everybody's in the office, and that creates everybody's kind of around the campfire culture. And, our business is so weird. Every deal's different. But, the other day it happened. One of the girls was like, hey, I'm doing a foreclosure in Indianapolis. Who's done one of those? Oh, Angela's done that. They get together real quick, boom, 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 problem solved. Like that doesn't happen on Slack. It's hard to have that kind of culture. So that was how we started with just a couple of clients and, just kind of word of mouth. It grew. We 4X'd the company last year. Wow. And we'll double it again this year.
Now, how many deals did you guys process last year?
Last year, 2,202.
2,202.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how many people are in the office?
We're just shy of 20.
Wow.
Yeah. Between transaction coordinators, admin, we have some marketing people, some affiliate managers, salespeople, but the bulk of them are transaction coordinators.
About 100 deals per person.
Yeah, they handle. Yeah, they're around 80 deals right now. We have over 850 active files in our system right now.
It's impressive.
Yeah. So.
All right, now let's talk about the numbers.
All right.
Okay. Now I've heard some of this because I've heard you speak at some events.
Yeah.
Of all the files that open, right? We get the deal, we find the buyer, we get our contract, we're popping champagne bottles. Hey,
Order the
we're
jet.
making 25 racks. Zach's buying my deal. Let's go.
Yeah.
What percentage of contracts that you receive from wholesalers end up actually closing versus falling out?
The best. Our numbers are a little higher probably than normal.
Yeah.
But in our family mastermind, there was the big CRM guys did a survey last year, and it's roughly 50% of deals never close.
50% never close.
Yeah.
That is insane.
Nationwide. Now,
That comes from, is that Rob Swanson or who did that?
and Ari Simply and
Ari Simply,
all those guys that kind of put something
So let's
together.
delve into that and let's
Yeah.
talk about, for the listeners, what measures they can put in place for mitigating that. What's the most common reason for fallout?
A lot.
What can you do to put clauses in your contracts to mitigate that stuff?
Yeah.
Let's really delve into that. That's a very important number, especially because we see, this is fun, we briefly talked about it. There's a lot of these gurus online. They talk about how successful, how many deals they do. Are those deals that they talk about, and you speak on a lot of stages, deals that they've put to escrow, or are those deals that are actually closed?
Yeah, I think those are a lot of times, here's what I have under contract, here's what's projected.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. And yes.
Look at you. He's such a he's a politician
over here.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so let's delve
The reason I
into
get
it.
along with everybody is because I get along with everybody. There are a lot of people full of shit out there, unfortunately. And, I had an ex-partner who would do this. He would, get on a podcast and just, double our numbers. I'm like, bro, we're doing, 18 deals a month. Why do you got to say 30? Like, what the
I like when he comes in, he gets down to like 27. You know exactly how many wholesale deals he's done, down to the thing. We're like, we've done a couple thousand. That doesn't mean shit. How many have you actually done?
Because I was crazy about it. I loved keeping track of that kind of
that's
stuff. Because the data, like I'm not nearly as good as him.
And the problem too is when people inflate their numbers, they're giving bad data.
Yeah.
Right?
There you go.
And then if people are making decisions based on bad data,
Dude, there are so
you
many
make
people out
suboptimal
there.
decisions. So
It's a
that's why
domino
we're
effect of
very
poor
careful
decisions.
about who we put on this podcast.
I love
Like,
absolutely vetted, quality, transparent.
Only people that we know are actually legit.
There's
Okay,
some
so let's
people.
get into this 50% fall.
Let's
That's
do it.
crazy.
Yeah.
That's a crazy. Just like we talked about, how many homes are free and clear, 38 to 40%. You would never think. I would, because my deals, honestly, I think 98 to 100%. I mean, literally close.
So there's a difference. One, you're legitimate and have cash, so you're closing yourself. Two, that 40 to 50% of stuff that's going to die, and that was kind of the range between those guys. That's overall, right? When I was working local, it's going to be different, right? Because I'm standing in the house, I can feel it's crooked. I
I
can
used to be
smell
about
it.
like 20% was like
it's
my
way higher than
average, about
that.
20% contract fallout.
Yeah, locally, that's probably about right. But when you're local, it's different, right? I can stand in the house and go, oh, I can sell this for $92,000, right? You can do a lot of that stuff.
Virtual, it's going to go up a little bit.
Much more of a crapshoot, right? Because you're relying on what the seller's going to tell you. Typically, unfortunately, if you're scaled up, you might not have the most experienced guy doing acquisitions. So there are a lot of problems in there. And then, I say, this is from our own clients, of the 50% of the deals that don't close, 50% are going to be because you couldn't sell them. One, because
no buyer.
Or you're in a bad area, you're not using Investorlift, or you have an acquisition. Usually it's an acquisitions problem. And we can talk a lot about that.
Yeah.
Most of your problems stem from acquisitions.
Didn't understand a major repair,
right. Well, asking, but not asking good questions.
Not asking good questions.
I remember one time I was sitting at my desk and 2 big monitors up there, and I'm looking at the CRM, the notes. Yeah. Oh, needs a couple pieces of drywall. It's got some AC ducting hanging, whatever, right? So our acquisitions person underwrote it based off of that. On the other screen, I have the pictures, Zach, of this house. Not a stitch of freaking drywall in it. And there is some AC ducting hanging. Right. So obviously we offered too much because we didn't ask good enough questions to know, well, how much drywall is missing? Oh, all of it. Well, that's a different conversation, right?
Yeah.
How's the kitchen? Great. And they just move on. Well, tell me a little bit about it. Oh, it's got that cool metal railing around the laminate, 1950s vintage, So it's just not asking good questions.
So so this is where people should really focus on first, that have high contract fallout rate, is really focus on acquisitions,
right?
Asking the right questions, really understand what it is that you're buying.
Yeah.
What is the actual condition of the property?
Right.
And probably a little bit of his underwriting too, like really making sure you don't just pick the highest comp that isn't even sold, is active.
There's some optimistic thinkers out there.
On that one comp that hasn't even been sold.
Yeah, and even the one thing I used to coach people on is dispositions. I taught a lot of the big teams on Investorlift, but I would also sit with, when I would go out and consult with these guys, I would sit with their acquisitions people and say, okay, great, like walk me through how you comp a property. Oh, 52% of Zillow, and that's it. I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
52 what?
52% of Zillow, right? Like they come up with these dopey formulas, right? 48 to 52% is where we want to be. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, like, what do you do if it has a tenant and there's 7 months left on the lease? Oh, just the same thing, because they're going to just rehab it. I'm like, are they going to rehab it? You understand there's a tenant in there, right? So I always wanted because I think most of your problems start with acquisitions and, of course, marketing, right?
Yeah.
You're putting grapes in the top and expecting pineapples to come out the bottom. But let's just start with acquisitions. Do your acquisitions people understand who's going to buy this house?
Yeah.
And then beyond that, right? Not just the buyer. I think it's great that Zach buys the house, but what is Zach going to do after this? Right? How is he going to dispose of it? Is he going to pad split? Is he going to Airbnb? Is he going to, keep it as a rental? Are you going to flip it? Right? Because if I can teach the acquisitions person how to look at this property and say, here's
from my dispo perspective.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Who's my buyer going to be? How are they going to make money on this deal? Because
100%.
I love popping Zach for 20 grand assignment fee, but if he can't figure out a way to make money, he's not going to buy it.
He's not going to buy it again.
Right.
Yeah.
Not only that, I'm probably not going to buy another deal when you're just sending me BS deals.
Yeah.
I'm not going to spend my time doing the due diligence.
Right.
And let's clarify that 50% fall. Is that 50% fall from contract signed from wholesaler to seller, or is that 50% from wholesaler getting the contract and already having a buyer and then opening escrow and then it falls out?
No, that's from my contract with the seller. 50% of contracts that you sign with your seller
falls out, not before the buyer.
Right.
Once you get the buyer in place, then it's dropping down to 25.
Oh yeah, it's going up significantly.
Okay, so that's important too.
So here now you're kind of getting into something.
And then you got to deal with, like, do they have hard money? Does the hard money need an appraisal? Like, does the appraisal work? Like,
for sure.
That's why I always, every conversation I have with a buyer, question number one: how many deals have you done there? Yeah, I want to know who I'm dealing
Are you
with.
funding a deal?
Number two is, are you closing with cash or hard money?
Yeah. Yeah, because what will happen as a wholesaler is I'll talk to the first guy that calls me. He's like, oh man, that's not a deal. You need to be, 20 grand cheaper on that. I'm like, really? Why? Well, because man, by the time I get a contractor and pay my hard money and all that, I'm like, well, dude, that's a you problem.
Yeah.
I price this based off the local guy who's going to go in there with his, 3 workers and, and he's paying cash, right? Like, those are you problems.
Yeah.
This is priced for somebody who's, maybe local.
It's not the right deal for you.
Yeah, it's not the right deal for you, but I'm not going to take it personal that you want to beat me up because you need to use hard money, because you need to, because you're trying to invest remote and all that kind of stuff, right?
You got to take emotions out of it too. Like, you can't be offended if someone says that. You're just like, hey, I like that. That's a great line. That's really a you problem. The house is going to sell. I promise you.
Yeah.
You're my first phone call, right? You're like,
I'm like, all right. Yeah, I don't. I used to get worked up and fight with people when I was a kid. Now I'm
waste of energy.
Waste of time. Never argue with your buyers. Just like, the price is the price. Do you want it at this price? Yes or no?
Yeah, love to make it work,
And if
man.
not, like, where's your number? Are we closed? Like, cool.
Yeah,
okay,
if
no
not,
problem.
where would you be at?
Totally.
Yeah.
It's
So
very
I can,
important.
So I can
question.
see if I can find you something like that next time.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, and I would always have my dispo team track that, right?
Yeah.
Get an offer from everybody.
Yeah.
Because you know
Amen.
what? If you know, I'm pretty good, but if
Yeah.
I think it's going to be sell at 180 and every single person tells me 150 to 160, well, then that's the number. I made a mistake someplace.
Yeah.
I need to
Yeah.
go back and relearn and figure out what did I miss.
So that other 25%, that's what's
Here's
going
where you
on.
start hitting title
Yeah,
problems.
let's talk about the title
Yeah.
problems.
Yeah, I mean, and
What
it
are the
can-
biggest ones we should watch out for?
Yeah. Again, I'm going to tell you, it comes back to acquisitions. Being the dispo guy, and I don't want to be the guy who shits on acquisitions all the time, but that's where it comes from, right? You know, yeah, I'm talking to Mr. Smith, and I'm going to send over the contract, but I can clearly pull it up on any batch or prop stream or anything, and it's Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Well, where is Mrs. Smith? Is she available to sign? No, she passed away. Okay, cool. But now we know, right? And if you
Now
know,
we have anticipated.
now we know that there's going to be a little bit of extra work involved, right? Because now I can clutch and break with my dispo team and be like, hey, we don't need to close this in 3 days. My acquisitions guy, maybe I'm going to put 90 days on this contract, right? Because, hey, Mr. Smith, we're going to help you work through this process. I'm going to go ahead and put 90 days on here so we have time to work through everything so we can get this thing closed for you, right? I'm telling my dispo guy, hey, do not promise your buyer. If it sells in 10 minutes, do not promise that we can sell this close in 5 days, right?
Yeah.
Hey, this is
Be
probably
realistic. Otherwise, you're going to piss off your buyer. He's not coming back.
Right. Hey, maybe I've got a 45-day close on this thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
Or
so
put the honor, I like this, honor before said date.
Yeah.
And what is your availability as a buyer to perform? How much notice do you need to perform?
Right.
And that way you guys are communicating effectively the whole time.
yeah, and just tell them, hey, we're doing some things to make sure we give this to you with clear title. That's
Yeah.
really important to us.
Yeah.
So acquisition's a big thing, making sure you're asking all the right questions. Some of the things that come up, multiple heirs, missing heirs, people in prison,
Yeah.
people in, overseas, grandma deeded it to the niece that she loves to screw her other 3 kids, but she went to Staples and bought this, 1-page carbon copy, quick claim deed that's absolutely worthless that somehow got recorded that has to be fixed over time. So, I mean, there's so many. There's just so many, again, 2,000 deals last year, probably 1,500 situations. They're all just
a
little bit different, or working through bankruptcy, or one holdout heir. They're just endless.
We were looking through your contract the other day.
Yeah.
And there's 2 things that I like. Number 1 is you add a clause on there that buyer to pay EZRI closings, whatever fee for transaction coordination.
Yeah.
That way, that actually helps the buyer and the seller and everyone involved, because now you got a team of experts that are going to cure that title to make sure it actually gets across the finish line. Yeah. But then number 2, you had a clause in your contract was, Megan was over here the other day. She's, it's the seller's responsibility to deliver the property with clear title. It's not our responsibility.
Right.
It's the seller's responsibility. Yeah. So there's a clause in your contract that you have that says, if seller is unable to deliver the property with clear title, this contract will automatically extend.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
So
I like that. It automatically extends.
Yeah.
Until they're able to deliver with clear title.
That's a great clause.
Because when
Great
you
clause.
do so many,
and you record those, obviously, so it's in perpetuity.
Not always, but we can. After you do so many deals, and you're 1 day from the closing, and you need 5 more days, and the title company's like, oh, now you got to go get them to sign an addendum or extension or whatever it is. And let's just hope they're still on board.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they
Just
know
handles that.
when you show up and like, hey, I really need you to sign this, that anybody who's halfway smart, if they're aggravated, they know they can bounce.
Pay me.
So
Pay me more.
Pay me more. Yeah. So, we just put in there, again, I'm not the smartest person, but I only get smacked in the face once. So my contract has been adjusted over.
Smart.
It's very tweaked. It's short. A lot of people look at it like that's dumb. I'm like, this thing's a work of art, man. I've had a lot of attorneys say it's great. But, so I didn't want to have to go back and do that. So after a couple times, I'm like, oh, let me just put this in the contract. This contract will, extend or whatever for it's not indefinite. We're not extending for 5 years, but it'll get me 20, 30 days if I absolutely have to. So to kind of go back to your question earlier, you asked about how do we charge. So we work on a subscription model, which is going to be a little bit different from some of the other smaller transaction coordinators. Because here's the difference. we're gonna shift a little bit here and get into the kind of the nuts and bolts of transactions. If Robert sends me a contract, the minute he has his contract with Mrs. Smith, I want him to give that to me, right? Why? Because one, I just want him to go do his next deal. I don't want him to worry about it all or go worry about selling that deal. But if he's got this hairy deal, I need to get to work on it as quickly as possible, because as soon as he has his assignment contract or a contract 2, what does he want to do? Close, right? So I don't want him giving me both at the same time, because now I'm starting out of the gate late. So I want you to give me that contract immediately. Contract shows up, Heather, somebody on her team, they're going to assign it to a coordinator. They're going to assign it to a title company. And, Claudia's going to jump on the phone. Hey, Mrs. Smith, I'm working with Robert on your deal over here at 123 Main Street. Hey, Mrs. Smith, I'm going to be your point of contact from here all the way to closing. You're out. Go do your thing. We're happy to talk to you, but we got this.
Yeah.
Honestly, and the less the investor interferes, the better. The more they get into it, they just screw stuff up. So, hey, great. So, Mrs. Smith, I'm going to be your point of contact. If you have a couple minutes, I need to start to ask you a couple questions for the title company so I can get you paid just as quick as possible, right? Because I'm going to dangle that carrot out there. So we have, we call it a seller doc or seller information sheet. It's about 4 or 5 pages, and we just ask every single question. This is the stuff that most people either don't know to ask, or that the title company has to come back to them 15 times. This is why
get it all done.
Because it's like the Matrix, man. We've seen it thousands and thousands of times. So we're very preemptive, right? And a lot of people they want the sheet. I'm like, the sheet is not the answer. The sheet is where you start, right? So we're asking all the questions that the title company is going to need. Who's the HOA? Tell me about the tenant. What's the rent? What's the security deposit? Who's got the lease? Is there an HOA? Is this a mobile home? I need the serial numbers. All of those questions. And then, is this a bankruptcy? Did you inherit it? Are you divorced? All of those things trigger this whole nother set of questions, so that, the reason title companies love working with us is by the time our stuff comes to them, it's in a nice, neat package wrapped with a bow. So they're like, oh, no problem. Done. We can get this finished.
Insane.
Yeah. So same thing. You give me that contract 2, we call it, or your assignment contract. Now I'm calling your buyer. Hey, Zach. Looks like you're buying this deal from Robert. We're going to help you with that. Hey, man, I need to collect some information. Need your corporate docs. Who's your hard money lender? Give me their contact info. Let me reach out to them so I can get the deed of trust done. Boom, 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 so that we can just expedite this and get it closed as quick as possible. And everything for us is compressing time.
Yeah.
Have you ever gotten in the car and put in the GPS and it's like 2 hours and 27 minutes? What's the first thing you think?
Turn around, I'm going home.
Oh, if you had to go, you're like, I can beat that. Right. So that we're always tracking how much time it takes to go from kind of one status to the other, and how can we do that better?
Streamline it.
How can we find efficiencies even within what we're doing? That's a big thing.
Title companies must love you.
Fucking love us.
Of course. You're handing everything to them on a bow. Technically, they just have to verify your information. We're ready to close.
We do 60% of what a processor does.
Oh, yeah.
And investors love him too, because the buyer is paying the fee.
Yeah.
So it costs them nothing. So they just don't need to think about it anymore. It's just, hey, David, here's my 2 contracts. Get this done.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to get done. Yeah. And David's got way more experience than any of these guys are going to have.
Put together.
He's going to solve so many more problems that they would not have been able to solve on their own. So it costs them nothing, and they're able to maintain more revenue and have way less. It's just an absolute no-brainer. Like every time I meet an investor, I'm like, "Are you closing with Easy REI?"
Yeah.
They're like, "No." I'm like, "Why not? Like, what reason would you not?"
You're going to pay us.
Hold on. So if I'm an end buyer on a deal and the wholesaler has a subscription with you, I'm technically absorbing their fee, because on their contract, right? It's true. They have to disclose to me, hey, there will be another fee because I'm using a transactional company.
Just in the middle of the contract.
I get it. Right, but how do I know how much it is? Because if someone only does a couple deals and they contract with you, their per contract, I'm sure, price is greater.
Great question.
And then I assume that by me.
Here's how we do it. So we work on a flat fee, 1 to 5 contracts. I know this will live on forever, and this price may not be when you watch this later, but it's $19.97 for 5 contracts a month, up to 5 contracts. So basically it's $400 a piece, half the price of any other competitor out there.
Okay.
There are some people in some of these groups that charge $1,500 per transaction.
Got it.
So here's my biggest problem. 40% of deals die.
Yeah.
If I only get paid when the deal closes, my team work 40% of the time for free.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. I would hope that you don't expect me to do it. Our people are very good at what they do. So the only option there is I have to call up Bobby, the wholesaler, and go, hey man, this deal closed. I'm going to send you an invoice for $300 for a cancellation fee, because we legitimately worked on that. Like people did work, because like I just said, Claudia called up Mrs. Smith. Like we do all the front end work. If he never gets a contract to sell, I move it to archive, but how do I pay Claudia? How do I cover? So the way that we figured out a way around that is you're on a subscription model. I'm not going to charge you for a cancellation. Now, Heather, my ops manager and partner, she monitors all that. Like if you start to get out of whack, she's going to have a conversation with you, and you don't want that. But yeah, so we're monitoring those things. So $2,000 a month. Here's what I tell people: if you're doing 2 or 3 deals a month, you can 100% offset the cost at $749. Right? So you'll put into your contract, instead of the money coming to me, it would go to, Investorlift Home Buyers LLC. So what happens on the HUD is instead of making $20,000, you make $20,749 or $950. I've got some people that do $999. I got some people that have big balls and they put $999 on the seller side, $999 on the buyer side, and they're making $2,000 off of one contract. So here's
They're
what happens.
arbitraging your transaction.
Well, here's the
Robert's definitely doing that. They're amazing.
So, this is why people love working with us, because now I can turn transactions into a profit center.
Right.
If you do 5 deals, I'm not smart enough to do the math. If you put
making 8,000.
Yeah, 749. God bless it. 749 times 5 deals.
That's another team member.
So you can generate on 5 deals.
If you're charging that, but if you're charging $995, $995 is 10,000 minus your thing, is a net arbitrage of 8,000.
Yeah. Now a year.
Right. That's $100,000 a year if you got the big balls like Robert.
And you didn't have to run Indeed ads, and you didn't have to interview people, and you didn't have to hope you get somebody and train them, and you don't have to manage them. You can sign up with us today, and tomorrow you have 20 coordinators that are expert level.
But technically you're making a lot more than that, because it's your opportunity cost of dealing with all that 100%. When you could focus on acquisition.
It's really hundreds of thousands.
You're making hundreds of thousands.
Chasing down the seller for,
that's your least.
I need a copy of your marriage certificate.
I'm going to go down to the recorders to find the death certificate.
No, they're just handling that all for you. You're just on the phone.
You want to be buying deals, focusing on revenue generation. That's it.
Yeah. That's it.
That's great.
And that's a mistake. Some of these guys, and I was this guy in the beginning. I had the badge that I could pin on that said control freak. Right. I'm the best. I'm the smartest. Nobody does it better than me. I got to touch everything. But, you can't scale that way. You can't run a real business doing that.
Yeah.
And that was tough for me. I had to overcome that and start to hire in some amazing people and get people to do things for me.
So when you first got this started, I was a little bit skeptical. I was like, it sounds like a good idea, but is it going to work? Like, are people going to actually use it? Like, are you going to actually be able to solve all these issues and do it and still make money? You've absolutely crushed it.
Thank you.
The proof of concept is there.
Let me just say all of this. It is not me. I have an amazing team.
You got an incredible team.
I literally am the banana head that walks to the office.
Yeah.
Hey, how'd you guys' weekend go? I have a fucking kick-ass team.
We just went down to Punta Cana with the entire Investorlift team. Had a blast. We rented 2 giant 100-foot yachts with scuba diving, snorkeling. And we brought Heather and Megan, who, run your transaction coordination and title.
Yeah.
And we went down there and we came up with a plan. It's a plan that has been in the works now for years.
Yeah.
Right? Going back at least over a year.
At least.
Yeah. But I said, you know what? Let's flesh it out.
Yeah.
And so, guys, today, the big announcement is that Q3 this year, we're going to be working together to bring you all Investorlift title.
You're joking me.
Investorlift title.
Unbelievable.
We're opening up our own title company. It's going to start in Florida and Texas.
Wow.
But then we'll be adding states as we get licensed in each state. And our goal, our mission is to be the number one most investor-friendly title company in the world.
Yep. It'll be VIP, concierge level service, only Investorlift clients.
11 out of 10.
Yep.
We're not going to be the cheapest. If you want cheap, go somewhere else.
Yep.
Right? It's going to be a little bit more expensive than just a regular title company.
Yep.
But here's what we're going to do. That extra money we're going to be putting into bringing on the best, most talented 11 out of 10 transaction coordinators and title people in the world. Because, I remember when we're doing deals, we'd have like the person. We're like, hey, that title company, we only want to work with that one person. Because we know that one person is like the good one on the team that never screws it up. And anytime we get someone else, they screw it all up. Yeah. So what we're going to be doing is over the next few months, recruiting those guys, the killers, like the best of the best, paying them very well. And and building the number one title and transaction coordination team in the world. And it's going to be built directly into Investorlift. So as soon as you accept that offer, it's going to ask you, hey, would you like to close this deal with Investorlift Title? You click yes on that button, boom, sends off your contracts. You don't have to worry about it in the system. You're going to see updates as we progress, move that towards closing. All 100% digital. So super, super excited about it.
Awesome.
Thank you,
Congratulations,
David.
boys. That is so
great.
cool.
Something huge.
Yeah.
And if you're on Investorlift, just watch for it. Q3.
We'll
It's going to be rolling out.
put up some kind of waiting list or something. We'll
Absolutely.
let some people in early.
I know there's going to be too many files for us to handle right away. So it'll be one of those things where we're going to move slow so we can move fast. Right. We want to make sure that everyone has an 11 out of 10 experience. So in the early days, it'll just be, maybe a few companies in a few states have it. But, within the next year, our goal is to be able to do this, across every major state and be servicing all you guys, helping you guys be able to close any deal type, anywhere in the country, solve any title issue. And we're going to generate a lot of data on it that we're going to use to help people preemptively solve these title issues.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. Built on all the stuff, the thousands and thousands of deals that we've done, individually with people. So it's gonna be exciting.
Absolutely. And to celebrate it, I mentioned in the beginning, if you drop a comment, I'm in a good mood today to celebrate this. I'm gonna be giving away a $6,000 Investorlift license with 5,000 of my top buyers in that city loaded into the account already. That's worth over $10,000. But here's what I want you to do. If you want to win this prize, down in the comments, I want you to drop a comment about your worst title experience. The way that we're going to get to 11 out of 10 is make sure that those experiences don't happen with our customers. So this is a way for us to get feedback from you. Like, what do you hate about the title companies that you're working with right now? Tell us what your biggest pain points are. Tell us what your worst title experiences were. And one of you guys is going to win 1 year free on Investorlift with 5,000 top buyers.
Here's what I'm going to do too. I have the premier Dispo training course in the country.
Amazing.
It's called Dispo Team Training. Retails every day on my website for $5,000. I will give that person who gets this. It's a 22 module, 16-hour course that will take somebody from zero. Like, you can bring somebody in to do Dispo on your team that has no idea. It literally starts with what is wholesaling and works them through that whole process. And I want to give them that to them too, so we can get somebody really kicked off.
I've been in a great mood as well,
Yeah.
fellas. I've been in a great mood. I'm going to throw in one more thing. I'm happy to buy your deal for free. All right, for free. I got you.
Zach will buy your deal for
We'll
free.
get it run right through.
Yeah.
So
Amazing. Absolutely incredible.
Well, it seems like a natural progression. And true, what I love in dealing with the title traditionally is the people that we're engaging with on a daily basis, they don't come from the investor background. So they don't understand the thousands of different, every transaction is unique and different. No transaction is the same.
Right.
And so the fact that you're reverse engineering the title, coming from the investor side into the title is the best thing possible. So the relatability, the problem solving will all be streamlined. Nothing's going to be new in that. It's not foreign language. It's a natural progression to what you're already doing. It's an amazing synergy amongst your companies. So
many people
I
say,
see great things.
can you do this type of deal in this state? I'm like, bro.
You laugh at it. You're like,
I'm
you
like,
don't understand.
Dude, we did last year $238 million. Like, yeah.
$238 million.
Of transactions. Wow, that's insane.
Yeah, we'll double
And
that
you know
this
what?
year.
I bet you we'll do $500 million to $1 billion. Once we have this plugged
no
in.
doubt.
That's great.
No doubt.
And that'll just be the start. It'll be 10x that the next year. So I'm super excited for
we're
this.
moving into a big 14,000 square foot office.
Yeah, we have 14,000
anticipating this.
square foot office just to fit everyone.
That's amazing.
I anticipate within 12 to 24 months, there'll be over 1,000 people working for this company.
I anticipate in the next 24 months, you're going to have to move to Arizona, just like all these,
Dude,
you
you're
know,
like the
Mecca
sixth
stuff.
person in
It's so
2 or
funny.
3 days.
No,
who said
you
that.
do what you need to do. But the proof is in the pudding. You move to Arizona,
I'm gonna have to buy one of your
your
houses.
business quadruples.
Need a
you know?
little-
house.
Yeah, I need a house with a pool. That's
I got
That's
you.
where Luigi got. Yeah, it was Luigi's living in one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's a beautiful, that backyard. Whew, banger.
yeah.
That's
Okay.
exciting. Let's do a Jenga.
We got to do
and
some
we'll-
Jenga. So
Yeah.
how this game works,
Okay.
each of these Jenga blocks has a question on it. So
All
you're
right.
going to pull a Jenga, answer the question, and then we have a Jenga block for you that you'll have the opportunity to write
cool.
whatever question you want for future podcast
I love
hosts
it.
to answer. So you write your question and sign the other side. So go ahead and pull whatever Jenga blocks.
Try to get. Cool. All right.
Nice work.
what do you
Nice
got?
work. What's the question?
How do you manage your health with all of your business endeavors? Well,
Actually, we got a good story. We both got. You should tell them about what we're doing.
That was
with,
one of my questions.
Yeah, the Whoop. So Robert and I just hired actually the same guy. It's a very concierge health and nutrition fitness company. Cole Taylor, shout out to him. And yeah, man, been great. It's incredibly high level, but they do the blood testing, like urine testing.
You synthesize your DNA, figure out what type of foods you should be eating.
Was he the former football plaire? Different guy.
No, he was a college player, I think.
Yeah, I think he was. Yeah, he's got a sports background.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's been amazing for me. I've lost over 70 pounds in the last, I don't know, 6 or 8 months. So
wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, and then so these Whoop plans are tracking all of our key performance metrics, or sleep, or stress, all of that, and that feeds to a team of 6 doctors that are looking at everything every week, and then giving us recommendations. And then based on our blood work, we know like what are we deficient in. That goes to a company that we don't even have to think about it. It creates all our meals based on the macro micros that we need to go hit our goals.
I've hired a personal assistant that does meal prep and everything for me now.
Amazing.
Because like when you're running a company, you don't have time for this.
And this is a big problem. Like this is a great question, because what happens, and certainly in 22 years of doing this, you can only juggle so many balls at a time, right? And there's just always something that's going to go. And the easiest thing is, I don't have time. I'm going to run through McDonald's, right? I mean, that's just what happens. So great question. It's very difficult.
Now we can outsource it.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, now it's
just like transactional coordination,
right?
Exactly.
That's right.
Same thing.
Outsource it experts.
Yeah.
Okay, so David, we want you to take this block.
Yeah.
Right. Whatever question you want.
Okay.
And sign on the other side.
Cool. While we watch, I don't think of what my question will be.
Luigi, should we do some deal or no deal, or you got to be out of here?
I don't have. Yeah, I got it. I'm way late, but it's okay. I mean, if we have to do it, we got to do it. But it's 7 o'clock.
Okay, we can skip it.
Okay.
It's 7 o'clock.
Yeah, you got to be at your thing. Yeah. All right. Next time.
It's interesting. I mean, as we're sitting here, and Dave doesn't know this, but this is so cool. Every person, for the most part, that we've had, and Dave, you included, anytime your name comes up, everyone just has just the most gracious, positive things to say about. I mean, it's not a random. Your success is not random, because your reputation, your demeanor, your energy is all solid.
Thank you.
He deflects, right? He's a good guy. He's slow. He's calculated. He's a deflector. But that's a great thing to hear.
I appreciate that. I tell people I'm always mystified when people want me to come speak or be here. I was so nervous about coming here today.
Why?
Because you guys have like fucking rock stars on here. Like, how did I make the cut?
Come on, bro. No, Jesus.
I don't know about that. Thank you. Again, very kind.
The Godfather of Chattanooga.
Yeah.
David Olds himself.
So, yeah, no,
on
but I'm always
11 out of 10 podcast.
Stunned when somebody wants me to speak on stage. I'm like, really? Awesome. That's cool.
That's cool. All right, what's your question?
So, hey, what is your biggest business failure? How did you overcome it? And what did you learn from it? And how did you adapt?
Great question.
Great question. You got to make sure to sign the other side.
Oh, okay. So who was this one?
Sign yours.
So I did the first group.
Okay.
I had
So you want me to sign this?
Yeah, sign it though. Yeah.
Mine. It's good.
Love it.
Nice. Good
Amazing.
stuff, man. That's cool. That's a good game to play.
How did you overcome it? What did you learn? Beautiful stuff. All right, so let's wrap it.
All right. Well, David, I'm super excited, guys. This is just the beginning. Every day we're working hard on coming up with new, innovative ways to bring our entire industry to the next level, serve you all better, progress our entire industry forwards. And this is a huge, monumental moment. We've been thinking about this for 2-3.
Well, we knew there was something where we needed to work together and kind of fill this gap in.
You
in
almost
the
did a really bad deal last year.
Dude, you talked me out of it.
And you came down a few hours. You came down to Punta Cana a few hours before you're about to sign this horrible deal that would have given away 50% of your title business. I was like, don't do it. You're like, why? I'm like, because I have these plans to do title with you. I haven't told you about them. But on my vision board, I'm like, in the next couple of years, I'm going to do title. And when I do it, I want to do it with someone that, I like, trust, respect, and that can execute. And I wanted to do it with you. And now it's coming together.
Here we are. It's going to happen.
So, David, thank you for everything you do. Thank you for being an inspiration to the
Thanks,
whole
man.
industry and just being an all-around great guy. And,
Great guy.
And this is day one. Day one of Investorlift.
Exciting.
Awesome. Guys, if you like this, once again, make sure to drop a comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this with someone. The running joke in the comments is we are the most underrated podcast in real estate investing history. And that's because we just got started. So we need y'all to share this with someone else you know in the investing space that could find value. Help us grow so we can do more of this, invest in more of this, and bring you more great content. I'd love to do these twice a week, you know? But we're just going to keep on doubling down, bringing you more 11 out of 10 content every single day. Thank you for joining us for this show. We'll see you next week.
See you soon. 11 out of 10, Dave.
11 out of 10.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Cool.
Boom.
All right.
Nice.